This podcast was brought to you by vampires. Well, we had zombies last year, so why not?
Blur.
Hello, and welcome to Monkey Broadcast, a monthly review and discussion show with me, the Jonin Monkey.
And me, Sven the Crusader.
Once again, we are in the month of October, and once again, we spend this podcast mostly ignoring the fact that it's Halloween.
Yeah, basically. I have no real attachment to this season, even though everyone has been hyping it up since July.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose we could do what most people do on Twitter and rename ourselves so that I am the Jonin Monkey or something like that. I don't know.
or I could do something lame and just call myself Spoopy Sven.
Well, I guess you could be Sven the Crusher, although that kind of sounds like a mercenary name.
Oh god, it sounds like a bad wrestler.
He is the Cruiserweight Champion, Sven the Crusher!
Better than Enzo Amore.
Oh god. Don't get me started on that.
We'll get into that.
Yeah, but for now, we need to start with our first section of the month, which, as always, is
QandA!
This is the section where we answer questions from the audience. If you'd like us to answer your questions, either leave them in the comments or send them to me via Twitter with the hashtag MBQuestion.
Our first question comes from IZ.
What are some examples of great suspense that you've seen?
Shall I go into everything Stephen King?
I take it that's his strong suit then.
Yeah, I wouldn't exactly say that... What's weird is I wouldn't exactly say that Stephen King excels at horror, because a lot of his horror books are really stupid, but suspense is undeniable. Like even in his non-horror books, he manages to include some element of it. Even in his comedy book, Drunken Fireworks, he managed to include some part of it, because you're like, wait, did the drunks really burn down both sides of the lake?
Yeah, that's definitely a good example, I think. In my end, two examples pop into my head, one of which is kind of frustrating since it's from Spider-Man Homecoming and, spoilers and all that. All I'll say is there is one car ride Peter Parker has, which was probably one of the most tense sequences I've ever seen in a Spider-Man movie.
Tense car ride. Note to self, keep an eye on that whenever I finally watch Spider-Man Homecoming.
The next one, I suppose I will give it some credit since, to be honest, the show has basically become a punchline on our podcast. The scene when Arya was chased by the assassin in Game of Thrones, that was a good example of tension. It's just a shame that the payoff was so shite.
The story of Game of Thrones' entire existence.
And we're back to the punchline.
Yep. And if you want specific examples of Stephen King suspense, well, I can name one. The ending of the book Finders Keepers. Hostage situations are always fun.
Nice. I guess also to include some video game examples in there. There are, oh god, I'm sure there are about a billion scenes where you're walking it through an environment and it's incredibly tense, but there are several from Mass Effect I remember recently, specifically Mass Effect 2, but we'll get into that.
Yes, we will. And I'm pretty sure I can pinpoint some of the scenes you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. But, yeah, those are the best examples I can think of off the top of my head. I could get into more examples, but you would have to delve into some horror stuff, and I tend to usually avoid horror stuff like the plague.
Yeah, and weirdly enough, I avoid horror stuff mostly on the fact that it's, by and large, completely dumb.
Well, yeah, there is that aspect. You do get a lot of dumb horror, but for me, it's just the fact that I'm a wuss. I'll be honest, it's not any kind of snobbery, it's just me being a complete coward.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
I think pretty much the only other example I can think of off the top of my head is one recent one from Critical Role, and the sentence, "I would like to strangle you to death."
Oh, God. Yeah, we could name several from Critical Role, because there's nothing more suspenseful than a live show playing in a gaming system where anyone could die at any moment.
Mm-hmm. And not always for stupid reasons. But anyway, but yes, I think those are the best examples we can think of off the top of our head, so we'll move on to Infinity Zero's second question, and it is...
Favorite season of the Pokemon anime?
That's hard for me to say because I really don't like any of them.
Yeah, this is always going to be an awkward question for us to answer, mainly because I think me and Sven are in the same boat in that we watched the first couple of seasons of the anime, then just stopped watching it and haven't gone back since. Well, I tell a lie. There was one time when I briefly went back to it, but I'll get more on that in a second. I mean, the most season I've watched is the Indigo League, as it's now referred to. Ash, Brock, and Misty were traveling through Kanto. But the thing is, yeah, there are fond memories due to nostalgia, but I wouldn't really call it a good season.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the Pokemon anime ever had a good season. Actually, I sort of lied. The first one was pretty okay. I mean, at no point would I say that the Pokemon anime ever crossed over into being as bad as Bleach and Fairy Tail, because holy crap. But it's still just sort of a silly show that doesn't take itself nearly as seriously as it actually could and should.
I think it's also the fact that for me, once you get over the fact that it changes so much of the games, for me it's the fact that the show gets stuck into a repetitive formula way too often, and in fact, to actually give an answer to this question, my personal favorite season for me would actually be when they started getting into the Ruby and Sapphire generation. I think the first season was Advanced Battle, they called it, like the Hoenn seasons. The reason why I say that is because that was when the show actually decided, oh hey, how about we shake up this formula? How about we started by having Ash actually buy the bike that was supposedly keeping Misty with him for 2 damn seasons? And Brock also looked like he was going to leave the group, although he came back after a few episodes, but at least they got a new female companion in the form of May, who I actually preferred over Misty, and I know that means several people are now going to murder me for it, but I preferred her over Misty because she actively got more involved, as in, she was a rookie trainer, so Ash had to act as her mentor, which changed up the dynamic, and also because she ended up taking the Pokemon contest, which meant she was able to have like her own tournament arcs and Pokemon which evolved, rather than Misty, who occasionally had episodes centered around her where she was forced to battle, but otherwise was just left on the sidelines with Togepi and Psyduck.
Yeah, I'll concur with that actually, because the Hoenn seasons were my first actual experience with the Pokemon anime, and they were the closest the show came to actually changing something. That's my big issue. Nothing ever develops.
Yeah, that's kind of the big problem. It's the continuous repetitive formula. I mean, I have checked out clips of other seasons, and I will give credit where it's due. The actual battles and the way they're presented have gone a lot more exciting because the studio has experimented with different animation techniques, like they're using CGI backgrounds so that they can do more dynamic camera work and make the battles more exciting, which, yeah, that is definitely a plus point in its favor, but outside of the league and gym battle stuff, you still have to deal with the fact that, oh, look at this, Ash has come across another person who has a problem with their Pokemon of the week, and they have to, it's this same repetitive formula, same Team Rocket showing up, just, it gets boring after a while is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and it doesn't help matters any that Ash Ketchum may in fact be the dumbest Pokemon trainer that ever lived. Like, his Pikachu has to be level 100, right? Who can be so bad at strategy that they lose with a level 100 Pikachu to the second gym in Hoenn?
Yeah, it's one of those weird things where because it's so continuously repetitive, it's the fact that Ash continuously fluctuates. Like, sometimes he will be a strategist, he'll remember, oh wait, I have Pokemon of different types, or Pokemon waiting into the PC I can swap out for specific battles. And there'll be other times when, like you said, he will just lose to Broly because, was it Broly or Brawly? I'm getting confused with Dragon Ball Z. But yeah, there'll be times where, just like you said, he will completely forget strategy and just rely on brute force. It's basically whether or not Ash is smart or dumb depends on what the plot wants him to be, which I think is just bad writing, honestly.
Yeah, Ash's wins and losses are completely dependent upon the mood of the writer, which is really sad whenever you consider that he's been going at this for so long that, logically, through the eyes of an actual Pokemon fan, he has no business losing anything ever.
Yeah, the fact that they try to keep preventing him from being the champions is always a little contrived. I mean, he beat all the Frontier Braids, that's his major victory, and the Orange League, which ended up being one battle, but aside from that, every single league he always loses somehow, and 90% of the time it's incredibly contrived. Like, I remember people flipping because I think it was in the Diamond and Pearl season, Ash lost to a guy who had a Darkrai that was unbeatable. It took him 4 of his Pokemon, but he defeated the Darkrai. What was his second Pokemon? Latios.
Oh, God. I totally forgot about that. It literally took a walking Deus Ex Machina to keep the plot going.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. But yeah, that's our main answer to the question. I think the Hoenn seasons were at least our personal favorites. I'm sure that there are many diehard fans of the anime who will say that so-and-so season is the best one because of character development and such, but yeah, for us it's gonna be really difficult to get past that repetitive formula, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I have some decent nostalgia about the series, but the thing about nostalgia is asking yourself whether or not the fond memories hold up to actual quality, and in the case of the Pokemon anime, no.
Yeah, I mean, there was well, like 1 or 2 diamonds in the rough, but otherwise, yeah, no. Although, if you are interested in a nostalgic walkthrough, I would definitely recommend Swade's video, since he definitely covers both the good and the bad parts of the Pokemon anime recently. But I think that's all the answers we can get out of this question, so it's time to move on.
Our next question comes from Luffy McDuck.
I'm in the middle of the woods. There's an angry bear in front of me, and I have a wooden stick in my left hand, a balloon in my right hand, and 10 gummy bears in my pocket. What should I do?
Toon Junkie, what have you done with McDuck?
Well, it can't always be Toon Junkie who makes up the phone questions, so, what do we do when there's an angry bear? I remember there was a guidebook that recommends poking them in the eye with a stick, but I don't think that would probably help in this situation.
Yeah, I mean, you are dealing with a bear that is already angry.
I wonder if the balloon is inflated or not. If it's inflated, you can let it go in the hopes of distracting the bear, run to get some distance, and if it chases you, try throw the gummy bears into its mouth just to confuse it, and then use the stick as a last resort.
All fair enough. I was about to say you could throw the gummy bears as a distraction in the hopes that the bear would recognize its own kind.
Well, I guess it's either that or you stick one of the gummy bears on the end of the stick, hide behind a bush, and then act like a miniature puppet show, like, "Hey, no, it's okay."
Don't give me story ideas.
Although that said, I don't know whether real-life bears have some kind of rivalry with gummy bears, like they don't see them as true bears, or... Oh, I'm giving this way too much thought.
Again, don't give me story ideas. Don't make me write the Bear Wars. That's a phrase I never thought I'd say.
The Civil War of the Forest. Brown bear versus gummy bear.
Cue the Star Wars theme.
And then it's resolved when the Care Bears release their full-on invasion.
Oh god, it's like Weirdo Mass Effect. All of our conflicts are thrown aside when the Care Bear Reapers show up.
I'm now just imagining the Mass Effect 3 opening title screen with the Earth being pummeled by fireballs, except replace the fireballs with rainbow streams from the...
Oh god, just imagine the gummy bear version of Commander Shepard.
Oh, this question has gone even weirder than it started, and that's saying something.
Thank you, McDuck. You've given us some serious mileage.
Although, admittedly, we haven't helped you with your Angry Bear survival situation, in which case all I can say is run and pray.
Yeah, pretty much. Play dead, that'll totally work.
Mm-hmm. Or better yet, eat one of the gummy bears and then pretend to play dead.
Hopefully, the bear will be horrified by cannibalism. Either that, or it will be grateful for the death of a pretender.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, it's best we should probably move on. Our next question comes from Vice of Legends, and his question is...
Tales of, has the series gone on for long enough?
No.
Yeah, it's weird, because the series doesn't follow any set continuity. Obviously, the games reference each other in certain ways and in certain games, but it has no set continuity, so the plot really hasn't had the opportunity to run stale yet. That being said, I hope they never do another sequel, because Tales of Symphonia 2 wasn't the best.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the only direct sequels out there are Tales of Destiny 2, the Japanese version, not the American one. Man, that confused people. Tales of Xillia 2 and Tales of Symphonia Dawn of the New World. And I think that's an important distinction to make, because I've been trying to get MVL into the Tales of series, and Sod's Law, he bought the 2 direct sequels, so I had to go, oh, right.
Yeah. But other than those games, and actually I've heard that Tales of Xillia 2 was pretty good, and correct me if I'm wrong.
It's hit and miss. I mean, in terms of the story, I would argue that it's pretty good and allows the characters to progress naturally, but, it's, how do I put it? There is the debt mechanic, which wasn't really the brightest of ideas. Plus, it was one of those sequels that reuses a lot of assets from the first one, so I'd say it's good but not perfect, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And we pretty well have established my feelings on Tales of Symphonia Dawn of the New World. I really didn't think that game needed to be a thing.
But yeah, like Sven said, all the other games are standalone. I mean, there are occasional prequels, like Symphonia was a prequel to Fantasia, and Berseria is a prequel to Berseria, but those games pretty much are standalone. Like, there are nice references between the two, but you're not going to be left confused, is what I'm trying to say.
And like I said, given that the games are all, for the most part, completely new narratives, it never has a chance to really run stale. It's not like... This isn't really as prominent in video games as movie sequels, so I'm having a hard time thinking of a good example.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I've got on an example. It's not like Final Fantasy VII, which had so many prequels, sequels, continuously building and retconning every single plot of the original.
Oh god, no kidding.
It's definitely not in that situation, and even then, I personally am never really a fan of saying, oh, this series should die. Like, okay, maybe if it's following one protagonist, it should shake things up a bit, but I'm always of the theory that if you do have a perfect ending you're reaching for, then by all means go for it. But otherwise, I feel that every single, I guess, universal franchise has the potential for new stories, and just because you've had one or two duds doesn't mean that you should just flat out cancel it and prevent any good stories from being born. It's why I never ever do a series that needs to die. It's why even with the many missteps it's made along the way, I don't think Sonic needs to die, because, I don't want to stop a potentially good story from happening just out of spite.
Yeah, and with video games, you rarely wind up with that exact situation. Like, Fire Emblem has been going on for donkey's years, and we're still getting plenty of mileage out of it. It's not like, say, long-running manga, some of which desperately needed to die. I'm looking at you, Bleach, looking at you, One Piece, looking at you, Fairy Tail.
Indeed, yes. I think that's more the fact that the creator was getting bored of it, but even then, if you had a break from it, you could potentially start it again with new stories that were more exciting. I mean, just to take an example of this that happened recently, Rurouni Kenshin started again with the Hokkaido arc, and I thought the ending of the original Rurouni Kenshin was perfect, but they actually found a way to continue after that ending with a story that's actually intriguing me and doesn't feel redundant. So, yeah, it can be done.
basically, to sum up the answer to your question, no.
Yeah, that's the much simpler, shorter answer.
Short answer, no. Long answer, no.
And now we owe Yahtzee $5.
Actually, no. Long answer,
No.
And now we owe BioWare $5. Anyway.
sorry, Jonin.
What can I do? It's YouTube. Anyway.
Hey, at least we didn't post anything YouTube judges family unfriendly.
Oh, that's true. Greedy motherfuckers. Anyway.
Our next question comes from Oh Dear. Here's the Toon Junkie bomb.
I've just joined a new tour group called the Walking Tours of Fictional Worlds, but with so many great places to go and see, I'm at a bit of a loss as to where to start. Got any suggestions?
This is actually fairly grounded by Toon Junkie standards. I'm expecting the follow-up to be as zany as ever. Now let me actually give some reasonable thought to this.
I think in my case, I would certainly suggest Donkey Kong Country, although you do have to beware aggressive wildlife.
Damn it, that was going to be my answer.
I would also say the Mushroom Kingdom, although I would sort of stress beforehand that the environment is strange, and yes, the hills do have eyes, you're not under any drug-induced hallucination.
Although you will be eating plenty of mushrooms.
Well, quite. As for others, I'm trying to think. I was about to suggest the Mass Effect universe, because that'd be interesting to see, but you can't really offer a walking tour of that since it's an entire galaxy. Maybe somewhere like the Citadel?
Yeah, and even then, with the Mass Effect universe, there's always the errant chance that you'll be hit by a Reaper's vapor beam.
Oh god, yes.
As for my answer, I've always wanted to take a tour of the universe of the original Might and Magic games, but no one will understand what I'm talking about, so for an alternative, let me just offer up Final Fantasy IX.
Yeah, that was a nice, fantastical world. I mean, even the desert tree thing was an interesting place to explore, and that's saying something.
Yeah, and compared to other Final Fantasy worlds, cough, cough, Final Fantasy VII, Grimdark, it's actually just generally a fairly pleasant place. You just have to, you just have to ignore the war crimes of Alexandria and the insanity of Kuja, and you'll be fine.
On that token, I would also suggest the world of Xenoblade Chronicles and Xenoblade Chronicles X, but you may need an escort review as the environments between cities are surrounded by killer robots and massive killer beasts that are generally pretty angry most of the time.
Yeah, and on that same token, it might also benefit you to take a visit to Tellius, the land of Fire Emblems 9 and 10. A wonderful world, just don't get stabbed by any Daeans or eaten by any feral tigers.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you don't invade the feral tiger's territory without asking them.
Yeah, without asking them, guys, can we please move in here? Thanks.
Yeah, they would probably have a right to claw my face after that, but anyway.
And upon that amazingly bad Patrick Star impersonation, those are our answers.
Indeed, yes. And so, the final question for this month, which again comes from Toon Junkie, is...
I need to get to Saturn in a hurry if I wish to catch the Cassini Pro, but I missed the Interstellar Express bus. Do any of you know if the subway goes out that direction?
I can't say yay or nay on the subway, but I can say this. Charter a pilot and find a mass relay. You'll be there in seconds.
True, but I think they would overshoot with the mass relay, because that usually sends you to the other side of the galaxy, and he only wants to get to Saturn.
True, you'd have to have one hell of a huge butterfly net and lean out the window if you wanted to catch Cassini with that method. That's the most amazing mental image I've ever had in my life.
Yeah, other than that, well, there is a replacement shuttle service, but that's gonna take, I want to say 5 years, and by then the Cassini probe would have probably moved on.
Yeah, all I can say is this. When all else fails, charter Han Solo and hope you don't get sucked in by an Imperial starship.
Yeah, that's always something you gotta watch out for.
So I hope any of those answers may be of some help to you catching Cassini before it smashes right into Saturn.
Indeed. Well, as much as you could smash into a gaseous planet, although I suppose you could smash into the asteroid ring. Anyway.
Let me smash. Moving on.
Yeah, that was all of the questions for this month. Once again, thank you to our fans for submitting them, and please feel free to send us loads more, particularly since the Next episode will be the season finale for the year, so yeah, that will be your last chance to send it to us. But for now, it's time for us to move on to the second section of the month, which is...
Reviews!
This is the section where the two of us review something we've read, watched, or played. And there are absolutely no prizes for guessing what I'm going to review this month. Partially because I reviewed the first game in this series last month, but also because, well, it's kind of hard to draw out suspense on YouTube when there's a title card that shows you what it's about and the title is literally just below you, or above you, or however YouTube's system works. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's very handy this month that I've really nothing to review in the main section, because it's gonna be a doozy.
Yeah, so we now move on to Mass Effect 2, the second game in BioWare's sci-fi RPG series. Now, like I said, I reviewed Mass Effect 1 last month, and for me, that was basically like a nostalgic homecoming, because as I said last month, I played that game like 5 years ago, but this was the first time coming back to it. This time, this was a completely new experience. I was playing Mass Effect 2 completely blind for the first time. I mean, I had some spoilers that already informed me what the plot was going to be, but I knew nothing beyond that, and it was certainly an interesting experience, I'll give you that. So
yeah, that's certainly the sense I got listening to your review last month and reading through your adventures in Mass Effect 1 back in the day, where all the ground was black, including the lava.
Yeah, thankfully I didn't have anything like that this time round, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sven, you've also been replaying Mass Effect 2 as well?
I have indeed. Which makes it especially convenient that I have nothing else to review this month, because I can sort of tag along on this one.
Indeed. Well, I think you've explored a lot more of the game than I have, because just to give an idea of our gaps of knowledge, I've just played Mass Effect 2 for the first time, and you, Sven, have said something along the lines of, I've played every single different combination of endings.
Yeah, pretty much. I've played through this game about 6 times now, with all sorts of different combinations of character backgrounds, character appearances, character classes, and outcomes to the loyalty missions.
Yes, we'll get into that. But yeah, I should probably get to explain the premise. Sometime after the effects of Mass Effect 1, where Shepard managed to stop Saren and his plan to bring back the mysterious force of... the Reapers. We've already mentioned their names. They're trying to stop a race of evil spaceship-sized machines called the Reapers.
That nobody else in the galaxy wants to believe are a thing.
Yeah, which may sound a bit mad, but it's kind of like saying, oh, by the way, Cthulhu is real, and he's coming in a few years. If it's not true, then that person's crazy and you want nothing to do with them. And if it is true, well...
Holy
yeah, you don't really want it to be true.
Yeah, so I can't really blame the galaxy at large. But you can't blame the Council, who at the start of Mass Effect 2 is very busily sending Shepard on completely meaningless propaganda missions. Just to save face, like.
Yeah, basically. But whilst on one of these propaganda missions, a mysterious Reaper-like ship appears above them and essentially utterly destroys the Normandy. It stands absolutely no chance. It's torn to shreds in minutes, and I'm gonna say, this moment really got to me because, yeah, this is the advantage of playing the games back to back to back, because this is a sequel, they upgraded a hell of a lot, not just in the visuals, but in the way they tell their stories. And this includes a section where you're walking through the Normandy, as in the exact same Normandy hub you had in Mass Effect 1, whilst it's on fire and falling apart all around you. And going straight from Mass Effect 1 to Mass Effect 2, that hurt. Especially when I knew it was going to happen, because I had plot spoilers, but even so, my god.
Yeah, this isn't a huge spoiler because it happens in the first 5 minutes of gameplay, and literally everybody knows about it now, but Shepard sort of, kind of, carks it.
Yeah.
In pretty brutal fashion. I mean, going the way of the Cassini probe is not death I would wish on anyone.
Yeah, that's basically what happened. Shepard manages to get everyone out into escape pods, but they don't make it in time, and so they're floating in space, and everyone assumes they're dead. 2 years pass, and as it turns out, Shepard has been brought back to life by the organization known as Cerberus. A very, very, very dodgy organization.
Yeah, essentially they're human nationalists, and they love their brutal experiments.
Yeah, that's the best way of putting it. They're fixated on the advancement of humanity, and they've decided to bring Shepard back for 2 reasons. The first being that Shepard is a symbol because they are the first human Spectre, basically Council's James Bond, and because of that, it's just resurrecting them is like resurrecting, say, Martin Luther King. That's kind of a big deal to have that person around. The second is they need someone of Shepard's ability because a mysterious force known as the Collectors have basically been abducting humans from distant colonies in the Terminus systems, which is essentially the Badlands of the galaxy. The Council live, well, actually, yeah, now that I think about it, it is just called Council Space, which is like the protected areas of the galaxy where everything is safe. The Terminus system is where law and order run wild, basically.
Basically, yippee-yi-yay, motherfuckers. It's the galactic Old West.
So the colonies out there aren't going to receive any help because the Council's view is they're in the Terminus system, they knew the risk going into it. But Cerberus believes that the Collectors could be a very dangerous force, especially since there are rumors that they're connected to the Reapers. So they tell Shepard, okay, I know you don't trust us, but frankly you don't have a choice in the matter. So we would like you to put together a team that can go to the Collector homeworld, kick their asses, and save the human colonists, or at the very least stop what they're doing. And that's basically the premise of the game.
Yeah, essentially that. And it sounds very simple and basic, but whenever you add in a dozen loyalty missions, 4 DLC packs, and 1,000 side quests, it's a huge game.
Indeed, yes, and this is actually a good point to point out the difference between Mass Effect 1 and Mass Effect 2. Mass Effect 1, I made the joke that the plot came off like a cop show a lot of the time, and if I was going to use that same broad spectrum, this is somewhat more closer to something like Seven Samurai or Ocean's 11, where most of the plot consists of Shepard organizing the team, having them come together, and then building up to one insanely dangerous mission at the end. In fact, so dangerous that even the party itself isn't too optimistic about it. Like, they go, yeah, we're probably not coming back from this one.
Yeah, and to that effect, and very fittingly, Shepard sort of assembles a team that can be roughly boiled down to the Intergalactic Suicide Squad.
Yeah, I mean, it can also be summed up when Garrus rejoins the team. We'll get more into the specifics later, but it's kind of summed up with the exchange Shepard gives of,
if I'm walking into hell, I want someone I trust at my side.
You realize this plan has me walking into hell, too. Just like old times.
In other words, the more things change, the more they stay the same.
By contrast to Mass Effect 1 being plot-focused, this one is definitely more character-focused, because every single mission is either introducing a new character or trying to solve any unfinished business so that they'll keep their minds focused fully on the mission. Hence, the loyalty mission Sven mentioned earlier.
Technically speaking, the loyalty missions are optional. Realistically speaking, they're not. Because if you don't do them, your teammates will start dying like flies.
Yeah, we'll get more into that in a moment, but yeah, that's the general structure of the game, so what are my opinions on it? Like Sven said, there are a ton of side quests, not just the loyalty missions, but also additional missions you can pick up from walking around the world or just double checking your emails, and frankly, I need to stop dancing around this. This was freaking amazing. This is what I want from side quests, and this is frankly what I wanted from Mass Effect 1 side quests in the first place. Every gripe I had about side quests from Mass Effect 1, you could just completely forget about here. Not only are the side quests more focused on character, each side quest has a lot of variety. There's none of that go to the same 4 bases and blow up the same 3 stationary objects over and over again, which was not fun from the first Mass Effect.
Oh god, no. And it doesn't hurt matters any that Mass Effect 2, they advanced technologically to a point where they could actually make every side quest unique, and for that matter, make all the characters' reactions to the side quests unique, instead of just the same herky-jerky 2 expressions on Shepard's face.
Indeed, yes. I've already mentioned that some of the ways they tell the stories have gone up, and that includes all of the, like Sven said, the character animations and some of the action sequences, which does admittedly lead to 1 or 2 instances where some of the characters are more powerful in cutscenes than they are in the actual game.
Yeah, I think TV Tropes has an entry for that. I think it's cutscene-assisted superpowers.
Basically, yeah. But, like Sven said, they managed to make each side quest unique, not just from a story standpoint, but also from what you're doing within it. And I think for me, the moments when I realized that I love this game and was when I decided to help out Kasumi, not realizing that it was a loyalty mission, and we were landing on a base and suddenly realizing this is a heist mission. I have to slip in undercover and observe the security and find ways to break in. Holy crap, this is a heist mission.
Yep, that was pretty much my reaction to that exact same mission. And I'll get into my personal favorite moment in that mission later on whenever we discuss a certain mechanic that they added to the game. But the loyalty missions in this game, they're treated like a big deal, and that's especially impressive given the size of the cast. I wasn't joking whenever I say there's a dozen playable characters.
Indeed, yes. Now's probably as good a time as any to actually get into the new party members. Your first 2 companions come directly from Cerberus. Jacob, a honest soldier who basically joined Cerberus because he was tired of the whole bureaucracy thing. And Miranda, how would you describe her? She is a high-ranking member of Cerberus who decides to wear a bodysuit that's 1 size too small.
Yeah, she's essentially the elusive man's right-hand man. Psst, the elusive man being the leader of Cerberus, voiced by the legendary Martin Sheen. And Miranda is, shall we say, well, she's genetically modified by her father to be, quote-unquote, perfect, but she's sort of far from perfect. She's stone cold, she believes firmly in Cerberus's human nationalism, and is actually sort of insecure.
Yeah, funnily enough, a lot of the insecurity comes from the fact that her father basically decided to give her genetic enhancements solely so that she could be the perfect heir of his company, which, yeah, that might give someone issues.
Yeah, so, in other words, not a prime example of a human paragon, but you can sort of understand why.
Yeah, and by complete contrast, you have Jack, who also did receive enhancements to her bionic/psychic abilities, but, well, she is what you at first think is a really crazy outfit is actually just her bare skin covered in a crap ton of tattoos.
Yeah, and again, quite in contrast with Miranda, her bionic and physical enhancements were, well, let's not cut it fine here, sort of the result of all of Cerberus's best brutal experimentation.
Indeed, yes. Because of that, she's kind of unstable, violent, and assumes any attempted friendship is a transparent attempt to use her for something else. So yeah, she has some issues.
Yeah, in fact, you could say that Jack has issues personified. On the more innocent but no less quirky note, you have Morden Solus, a neurotic, motor-mouthed Solarian scientist who kind of sort of created the Krogan genophage.
Yeah, and he kind of has mixed feelings about that, because on the one hand, he is hyperlogical to the point where he can sometimes have long strings of thought in a single breath.
In fact, I dare say he sort of enters a Sherlock-like trance where he goes over every possible scenario in about 10 seconds.
Now to greetings, human. Curious. Don't recognize you from area. Too well armed to be refugees. No mercenary uniform. Quarantine still in effect. Here for something else? Vorcha? Crew to clean them out? Unlikely. Vorcha a symptom, not a cause. The plague. Investigating possible use as bioweapon. No. Too many guns, not enough data, equipment. Soldiers, not scientists. Yes.
And to that effect, he also omits needless words in all of his sentences, so tractions are a rarity with Morden.
Mm-hmm. And like Sven said, he was responsible for the genophage that basically rendered Krogan in the same situation as pandas, i.e. only like 1 in 1,000 babies ever get born, so yeah, he's kind of in a position that's similar to the guys who developed the atomic bomb back in World War II. They understand that it was for the greater good, but there is still some sense of guilt hanging over them.
Yeah, and actually that's a very good comparison, because now Morden's been left thinking of the long-term implications of what he's done.
And then, speaking of the Krogan, we have a new Krogan party member in the form of Grunt. And if you're thinking, he's probably a nice normal guy, no. He was created from a tank to be the Super Krogan.
Yeah, essentially he's a completely genetically artificial being created to be the ultimate Krogan killing machine. He's a little crazy. And he's also voiced by Steve Bloom in a wonderfully crazy performance.
Indeed, yes. I mean, in fairness to him, he is essentially born on your ship, so he's only like a couple of months old at best.
Yeah, despite being fully sized, he sort of has the mindset of a Krogan baby, and apparently Krogan babies think a lot about killing everything in sight.
There was also a brainwashing messages inside a tank, so, basically...
True, yeah, there are a lot of frayed ends to tie up with this one.
Indeed, yes. And speaking of frayed ends to tie up, that goes into our other character, a Drell assassin named Fane. Now, the Drell are a new race who are essentially kind of reptilian-esque companions to the Hanar, I believe?
Yeah, essentially, the Drell are lifelong allies to the Hanar. Where the Hanar are scholars and theologians, the Drell are more of like their special ops wing.
And yeah, he was essentially an assassin who you recruited because he's the best in the business. However, the one slight problem is that he's dying.
Yeah, more or less he's suffering from the Drell equivalent of emphysema. And as of this point in the story, it's basically reached the terminal phase, and he figures he's killed a lot of people in his life, so he may as well go out doing something worthy.
And he also has a lot of regrets in his life, which are only amplified when his son decides, hey, this assassin gig sounds kinda cool.
Yeah. Thus the loyalty mission later on. And speaking of family issues, Samara, the Asari Justicar. You want to take this one?
Yeah, the Justicars are kind of like Spectres in that they're free agents that provide justice for the Asari race, but they kind of follow what's known as the Code, which she likens to something like Bushido or the Knight Code from the Earth's history. Except she follows it to the letter rather than the spirit of it, so in her belief, it doesn't matter if a mercenary is unarmed and defenseless, they killed, so she must violently kill them back.
Yeah, essentially, Space Javert.
Yeah, to the extreme. In fact, Javert is probably the best example of that. And the reason why Sven brought up families is because the loyalty mission is revealing that her daughter is... Oh, I really wish I could remember the term off the top of my head.
Arnett Yakshi.
Thank you. Which, okay, we never really got into this during the first podcast, but the Asari, part of the reason they all appear to have female bodies is that they're technically gender neutral, and they procreate by having a psychic connection that also allows them to pass on DNA. It's kind of complicated, but basically, an Aratyashi doesn't absorb the DNA, rather it just absorbs the psychic essence of someone and kills them.
Yeah, and this is a very minor spoiler. I won't go into how we figure this out, but we figure out that not all Ardat Yakshi are serial killers. We learn that in Mass Effect 3, but Samara's daughter Morinth is a serial killer.
Well, even in Mass Effect 2, they can point out that Araryashi, when most find out about it, they go, okay, I'll live a life of seclusion and comfort and we'll just go away forever. Samara's daughter, Morinth, basically goes, hey, you know what, I'm gonna break out and just hunt down people who interest me and then kill them.
Yeah, wonderful person there.
Yeah, and the reason I even mention this without spoilers is because, for some bizarre reason I do not get, you can actually have Morinth as a party member, but to do that you have to help her kill Samara in her loyalty mission, which is just baffling, because it's not like Morinth is repentant for her deeds at any point.
Yeah, and it's established if you do recruit her that her goal on being on the ship is essentially to kill you. So, this is some Knights of the Old Republic Sith path here.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of funny that if you do try to have sex with her or romance her, that it will lead to an actual game over. But, but at the same time, yeah, there's really, really no way to justify recruiting her other than you want to be an intentional dick just because you can.
Yeah, essentially, like I said, the only reason that people ever chose the Sith path in Knights of the Old Republic.
It's not even like you needed alternate endings, because one very, very, very small criticism I have is that I wish they would actually point out which missions will restart if you fail, and which ones give you a non-standard game over and allow you to carry on, because her mission and Fanes are one of them, where you have to restart all over again if you fail to meet certain conditions, so it's not like there aren't any multiple ends to that quest.
Yeah, no. So more or less, and most people actually acknowledge this in the fandom, the best way of going about Samara's loyalty mission is to complete Samara's loyalty mission.
And then there is Master Thief Kasumi.
Oh man, I wish Kasumi had been in the main game so she got more involvement, because Kasumi is fun.
Yeah, I mean, she is still a party character, but you don't get to interact with her in the same way as the others. If you talk to her, she will provide gossip, but you don't really get to ask about her backstory or anything like that.
But she's still super enjoyable, and you get her one loyalty mission, which led to possibly my favorite Renegade interrupt of all time. Shooting a rich guy's vase to shut him up.
Oh yeah, I should mention that this guy is an art collector, so...
Yeah, it's just classic thief story fun. And since we're on the topic of the optional party members, Zaid Masani. Another, not really completely fleshed out, but nonetheless noteworthy character. Zaid is sort of the foil to Kasumi, because where Kasumi is generally chaotic good, she does some shady but has standards and is a fun character. Zaid is fun because he's bad.
Yeah, this is a character I didn't get to play as because he's DLC. I didn't have the money. I will admit that didn't seem that appealing to me, but maybe I misinterpreted it.
Well, I find him at least enjoyable in the sense that it's always fun hearing Robin Socks voicing a sort of retired monster character who swears in every other sentence. And Zaid's war stories are hilariously funny, and he has some amazing one-liners in the main game. But his loyalty mission is an exercise in how far BioWare can take a character without making them completely unsympathetic.
And then there's... Oh, jeez, I want to say this is a spoiler, but honestly... The game's been out for so long that it's probably going to be awkward to have Downton around it. There is also Legion, who, surprisingly, is a Geth.
Yeah, specifically it's so bizarre trying to explain how Geth function, but Legion is basically the chosen form of about 1,000 Geth intelligences.
Yeah, that's actually why it's kind of fascinating, because I mentioned that the Geth were... They were kind of the evil robot minions in the last game. It turns out that it's a bit more complicated in that, because the way the Geth were originally formed was that the Quarians allowed the Geth to network so that they could gain information from each other to complete certain tasks. and the initial AI was only very small and couldn't do much. However, when enough Geth were in the same building, they suddenly started to have enough intelligence to ask things like, what is a soul? And eventually got enough intelligence to figure out, hang on, these guys are using us as slaves, let's overthrow them, and that's how they became their own independent race. Except, after they got to that point, they couldn't decide which way they wanted to develop, and half of them decided to develop under their own steam, and the other half decided, hey, let's join this big machine Cthulhu in trying to destroy all organic life.
Yeah, so the story of the Geth isn't all black and white, even though in Mass Effect 1 they were just sort of mindless killing machines, literally. But as it turns out, that was the Reaper wing of the Geth talking.
So, in your case, you have Legion, which is the name they decided upon after getting through a conversation that was very frustrating for Shepard of...
Then what should I call you?
Geth.
I mean you, specifically.
We are all Geth.
What is the individual in front of me called?
There is no individual. We are Geth.
And speaking of which, I've been bringing up voice acting performances in this recording so far, so I may as well bring up the wonderful performance of DC Douglas as Legion, who makes Legion seem weirdly endearing in its weirdness.
Yeah, they don't get much development, but Legion was an interesting character to have around, if only because, well, aside from the fact that it's giving more context and complexity to a race that were literally just mindless killer machines in the first game, but just presenting an interesting idea that essentially a race is all one consciousness rather than individuals, and the more you try to explain the benefits of individuality, the more it confuses Legion, and have him ask you, why is this a good thing?
Yeah, essentially the Geth just operate on blue and orange computer morality. Their morality is computer boops and bipes.
Basically, yeah. And you do get some of the original members back, specifically Tali and Garrus. The rest, you don't really get to see the party, but you do actually get to see them out in the field and in story missions doing their own thing, which I actually think is a really good compromise. I like that, as much fun as it is to have something like Tales of Symphonia Dawn of the New World, where you meet up with the characters and they're just the same as they've ever been, I do find it a bit more satisfying in stuff like Tales of Xillia 2 and, of course, this game, where the characters have actually progressed and moved on with their lives, so they're not really the same people they once were. Like, Rex is now the leader of the Krogan, essentially.
Yeah, which in and of itself is amazing, and weirdly enough, the cool old guy is actually the reformer the Krogan need. To give the rundown, basically, Rex is now the military president of the Krogan. Kaidan or Ashley, whoever survived, has moved slowly up in Alliance ranks and is really bitter at you for joining a sworn enemy of the Alliance. Sort of understandable, but come on, man. You understand the threat of the Reapers. You should understand why I'm doing this. Liara has become an information broker. That leads into possibly the coolest DLC of all time.
Wait, is that Lara the Shadow Broker? Or...
Yeah.
Is that the Shadow Broker mission where you're sneaking onto the ship?
Yes.
That's actually pretty awesome, because I think it's just included as standard without the DLC as part of the Trilogy edition, so I didn't have to download anything for that.
Oh, that's actually freaking epic.
Yes.
I'm glad you got to play that, because I'm gonna go into a small tangent here. My badass renegade Shepard romanced Liara in the first game, sort of playing the opposites attract angle, badass and dork. And, Lair of the Shadow Broker is a huge payoff for anyone who romanced Liara, because, for one, it's just sort of a fun, epic storyline featuring Liara as a temporary companion, and for two, if you romanced her, you can pursue exactly where the relationship is going now that Shepard has risen from the dead.
Indeed, yes. And it also doesn't help that, just to give you the unique gameplay, you have a hostage situation, you have a car chase, you have a gun holdout, and also, my Shepard, who's mainly Paragon, she was more of like best friends with Liara. Like, Liara did have an attraction, but she politely told her, I don't really feel the same way. But the two of them are good friends, and on top of all of these badass action points and the relationship options, you do also get some awesome banter between them. My favourite exchange being when they're having to hack into a door and Liara says it's an equipment that's going to take a while, and then there's one point where Shepard just yells,
"Remember the old days when you could just slap Omnigel on everything? That security upgrade made a lot of people unhappy."
I know, right? And then there's the two arguing like an old married couple while they're chasing after the rogue Spectre.
Oh god, yes.
Truck! I know. Truck! I know! There we go. You're enjoying this. Truck! Again?
Yeah, the first half of Lair of the Shadow Broker is pretty much just hilarity and epic action sequences. Then there's the endgame where you confront the Shadow Broker, who turns out to be an ugly alien that's about 12 feet tall and made of muscle. In other words, Space Lesnar.
Yeah, and was definitely one of the best boss fights in the game.
Yeah, easily. Funnily enough, that sort of leads into what I was going to use for the explanation of Garrus and Tali's arcs in this story. Tali has sort of become a, I guess, Quarian special ops officer? And Garrus has become a legendary hitman going by the name of Archangel. And I have to bring up his recruitment mission because I sort of realized years after the fact that it's a reference to something that I've talked about on this show. For a little background, I mentioned Simo Hauha, the legendary sniper of the Winter War, who was eventually only stopped by a Russian counter-sniper shooting him in the face with an exploding round, which he survived, and on the day he woke up, the war ended. In Garrus's recruitment mission, he takes a rocket to the face, gets part of his jaw blown off, and is up and about walking with a new prosthetic literally an hour later.
Yeah, oh wow, now that you've mentioned it, yeah, there are so many comparisons that it's not even funny.
Space Simo.
Oh wow, that just makes Garrus even more awesome. I should explain for context. Garrus is a sniper, and when you first meet him up, he was the head of a mercenary group, but he's now the only man left standing, and he's fighting about 3 other mercenary groups that want him gone.
On his own.
Yeah, so needless to say, he's grateful for when you start showing up.
Yeah, and of course, because of the legend surrounding Archangel and the mystique, he sort of ends up becoming the galaxy's equivalent to Chuck Norris in the lore.
Yeah. All
the common people love him and speak in reverent tones about him, and all the mercenary groups and all the lands want him dead.
Oh, indeed.
Which is pretty much just the sum of Garrus's character pissing off all the right people.
Indeed, although he also gives a perfect sum up of Shepard's rituals, and I quote, "The Collectors tried to kill you once and all it did was piss you off."
Yeah, actually that's a very accurate summary of both Shepard and Garrus.
Well, with all this talk of sniping, I suppose now would be a good time to briefly go over the gameplay. I want to say it's the same as last time, but a lot of things have been simplified. There are still experience and level up in the sense that you gain points for upgraded abilities. It's definitely focusing more on the third-person shooter side than it is the RPG side of things. Like, the equipment system has been smoothed out in that you can still pick up new guns, but you don't equip them right away. What happens is, before every mission, you get a chance to decide what each character's selection of weapons is going to be, and then you just go out with whatever equipment you have. And all I can say is, thank freaking God!
Yeah, you don't have to sort through 8 billion upgrades and 8 billion different suits of armor.
I mean, you can still do things like customize the appearance of your armor, and in the Normandy you can pay to research and develop new upgrades for your weapons, but once you've upgraded your weapons, they just stick like that. You don't then have to upgrade the upgrades, which, again, thank God.
Yeah, and speaking of gameplay, I have to give props to one combat mechanic they added, the heavy weapons slot. What sort of weapons exactly go in the heavy weapons slot, I wonder? Well, first you get a grenade launcher, then you get a collector beam rifle that disintegrates things.
My favorite.
there's a flamethrower, there's a missile launcher, there's a cryogenic freezing gun, and there's literally a mini nuke. Because Shepard.
Indeed. I did not get the mini nuke or the freezing gun, but I will freely admit, once I found the collector laser beam, I just went, you know what, I'm keeping this.
To be fair, I found it just the most generally useful and the coolest.
Oh god, yes.
And plus, you could turn the collector's own weapon against them and be like, suck fission, bitch.
Indeed, yes. And that also brings me to the other big change, is that in the previous Mass Effect, there was no ammo in the game. There was more a heat meter, that if you were just holding down the trigger button, the gun would overheat and you have to cool it down. In this game, they have brought back an ammo system, but instead it's more heat clips, in the sense that you use one round of ammo and then you shoot the heat clip out. And at first, I was thinking, oh, that's kind of annoying, because I did like that I didn't have to worry too much about ammo, just have to worry about the heat going up. But then I kind of realized that the reason it's there is to encourage you to actually swap out and use the weapons more, because I will freely admit, in Mass Effect 1, I had all the weapons available to me, but I just dumped everything into pistol and used that, because there was literally no other reason to use any other weapon other than personal preference. So this game actually encouraged me to start using the Collector's Death Beam or the shotgun at close range, which, when combined with the fact that my Shepard was a Vanguard and it has the charge, which, if you upgrade it enough, actually slows time after the impact. Oh, that was so fun. It was risky, but fun.
Oh yeah, Vanguard is awesome. I personally played, what's the class? Oh, Sentinel, with which you can summon armor made of data and become a tank.
Nice.
And I love the changes that they made to the specific classes in Mass Effect 2, because in Mass Effect 1, you really had no specific reason to go with a class like Technician, or in my case, Sentinel, because their armor and weapons were trash. But in Mass Effect 2, every class has an awesome aspect. Like, if you're a Technician, you get combat drones. If you're a Sentinel, you get tech armor. If you're a Vanguard, you can literally bulldoze things.
Yeah, and a lot of the bionic powers changed as well, and whilst I was initially upset that they got rid of Push, Shockwave and Charge more than made up for it.
Yeah, and of course they do have the ability Biotic Throw, and Biotic Throw is hilarious. Like, I was doing the Project Overlord DLC, and Sentinels, just so you know, have the most ridiculous power cooldown times known to man. Like, you can use a Biotic Throw and have another Biotic Throw ready in about 1 second.
Oh, wow.
So I was just sitting on a catwalk in cover, looking over at the Geth across from me like, oh look, fish in a barrel! Throw, off into space, throw.
Oh,
it was just funny, if nothing else.
Yeah, for me, my similar experience was that was when you were surrounded by husks in the collector ship, and I was basically using Shockwave to essentially play 10-pin bowling with them, like, oh look, an army of waves. Dun 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 dun. Ah!
So essentially, your method of combating the collectors was getting a whole bunch of bowling strikes. My method of combating the collectors can be summed up with the phrase, that's a home run!
Oh god. So, what we're trying to say is that the combat system is fun. I mean, admittedly, there is still that problem of occasionally there will be missions where you're just fighting wave after wave after wave, and it can get tiring after a while, but thankfully the combat's really not too hard. I mean, the only bit that's really iffy is that Shepard's clearly not designed for close quarters combat. In fact, the husks and the dogs were the enemies I feared the most, because they have the tendency of flanking you, and then they'll start attacking you from behind, and at that point it's really, really hard to actually get yourself in position to find out what's attacking you, because sod's law, they're in the blind spot behind you.
Yeah. That could get a little rough. But I will say this, the combat is at least a lot more dynamic than it was in Mass Effect 1.
Oh god, yes. I think that's part of the reason why it wasn't as irritating this time round. There's another new mechanic I should also explain, which is something that happened that also improved the storytelling: reactions.
Ah yes, the interrupt system. See, in Mass Effect 1, Paragon and Renegade points were just decided by dialogue whether you choose to be virtuous or a hard-ass. But in Mass Effect 2, it's a little more in-depth than that, because Shepard can now actually react to events mid-dialogue.
Yeah, you will occasionally get kind of like quick time events, although a lot more forgiving with time, where a character will be in the middle of a conversation, and you will see a icon flash up. There'll either be Paragon on the L2 button or Renegade on the R2 button. With Paragon, this could be something like stopping a companion from shooting an innocent person, hugging Tali when she finds out something tragic.
Yeah, that's a thing that happens in her loyalty mission, poor Tali.
Or standing up to someone who's been a bully. Renegade, it mostly comes in variations of punching someone when they're in the middle of a speech.
Yeah, and it's funny, actually. There's one situation in which the norm is reversed. The Project Overlord DLC features a character so awful even Cerberus doesn't like him, and the Paragon interrupt is you pistol whipping him in the face and telling him to f*** off.
Yeah, that was the option I picked for that one. I'll get into that in a moment. But yeah, that was definitely a welcome mechanic because, yeah, like Sven said, it allowed the whole Renegade and Paragon thing to develop a little bit beyond just reactions to dialogue choices, and it means you can interact with cutscenes in a more meaningful way. Although I will say that because my Shepard was so stewardess, there were so many times she could have punched someone in the face but didn't.
Your Shepard had a lot more self-control than mine did, although I will say this. Across all playthroughs and all play styles in Mass Effect, there is one universal truth. Paragon or Renegade, you always hug Tali.
Yes, what kind of monster wouldn't? Please don't say that so in the comment section.
We don't serve your kind here.
Or to quote a certain Turian Bartman, I serve drinks, I don't tell stories. I don't know where humans get that idea from. Yeah, you do meet some great NPCs in Mass Effect 2, especially since, like I said, it's in the Terminus system, so you do get to see some of the more darker sides. I mean, don't get me wrong, there were dark elements in Mass Effect 1, but whereas, just to take the Asari as an example, whereas you occasionally saw one or two Asari slave traders or a commando that was technically possessed, in this case, one of the main hub worlds is Ilium, which is essentially an Asari crime town.
Yeah, it's not as overt about it as the rotten hellhole that is Omega. It's a white-collar crime haven. And you also have Space Mafia, too.
Oh god, yes.
Which is a hilarious combination of words.
Mm-hmm.
Omega, a planet that desperately needs a few more Samaras and a few more Garruses.
Oh god, yes.
Although I will say this, resident crime lord of Omega, Arya Talok, hilarious.
Oh god, yes.
Why is it, though, that every character sharing the name Arya is just fantastic? Anyway.
Well, unless certain seasons. You know what, let's not bring that back.
Yeah, I choose to believe that those seasons didn't exist. But, moving on.
Yeah. As you can probably tell, I had a lot of fun with Mass Effect 2. It is a great sequel that does expand on things, like the fact that we actually get to see not just the darker sides of the Mass Effect universe, but also places that we didn't get to see before, like the Krogan homeworld Tachanka or Tali's home fleet, which were only ever mentioned in passing in Mass Effect. So, yeah, I was really excited to actually go there, even if the Krogan homeworld is a bit of a, dump, basically.
The Krogan homeworld is basically Fallout.
Yeah, in more ways than one.
I mean, nuclear Fallout as well as the game Fallout.
Yeah, I think the best way to describe it is that Tachanka is Fallout if everyone decides to go with the Git option of role-playing.
That's true. Oh god, on Tuchanka you get so many hilarious renegade options, including one where you literally just headbutt a ranting Krogan in the face. And the Krogan shaman who's in your presence legitimately just goes, ha ha, I like this one.
Yeah, he does that every time you put someone in their place, which in fact seems to be the traditional Krogan custom.
Yeah, essentially, if you can't hammer someone into their place, you will get hammered into your place.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the Krogan tradition even in the eyes of someone like Rex, who is a reformer.
Indeed, yes. In fact, I believe he uses it as part of political discourse at one point.
Yeah, he headbutts his brother in the face. In the case of Tuchanka, oh, what's that lyric that Tumblr always modifies to suit hilarious situations? Oh yeah, my shepherd became the following. She's beauty, she's grace, she'll punch you in the face.
Oh, good. Yeah, that seems to be the running trend. Like, I remember back in the day when SF Debris covered Mass Effect, he did a brief trailer for it, which was, oh wait, this is gonna go into a slight tangent, but bear with me. There was this time when Mass Effect decided, okay, we need an official canon image of Shepard, even though everyone has their own player images. For marketing purposes, we need a canon image of what female Shepard looks like. And, well, internet, horny boys, you essentially got this perfect blonde, tall woman.
Oh god, I remember that.
Yeah.
Even though my mental image of canon Shepard is the redhead featured on the box art.
Yeah, so that was swiftly changed, but SF Debris did a playthrough/review of Mass Effect that did use that version of Shepard, so the trailer for it mixed to the song I'm a Barbie Girl in a Barbie World, but it was intercut with all of Shepard's renegade options, including the part where she electrocutes someone working on a gunship with the line, "You're working too hard," and just...
Oh god, did they include the bit where Shepard Goldberg spears a mercenary through a window?
I think they did, yes.
It took me this long to realize that Shepard actually did a Goldberg spear, and it's the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, basically the point was, even if she does look like a Barbie doll, that doesn't hide from the fact that Shepard could just be this insane monster.
Yeah, pretty much. Or in my case, this is why I love the BioWare system of doing things. You don't have to go... Well, this is why I love the modern BioWare system of doing things. The morality system in Knights of the Old Republic was stupid. But I love the Mass Effect and Dragon Age system of morality because you don't have to be 100% in either way. Like, my Shepard I can describe as a hardcore lawful neutral enforcer, but essentially get the job done, uphold Alliance values, and don't give a damn if anyone likes you for it. Mm. But at the same time, that led mostly to renegade interrupts for me, but at the same time it led to a bunch of actually very fitting Paragon interrupts, like the ending of Zaid's loyalty mission, where she basically tells the guy, hey, you're sticking to the mission whether you like it or not, and at the end of the mission, putting a gun in Zaid's face and saying, okay, that's it, stick to the mission next time or I shoot you instead.
Oh, wow. Yeah, my Shepard, just to give an idea of the Shepard I'm using, Jasmine Shepard, essentially she's going with a survivor background, so she fixated on trying to be this, well, literal paragon of mercy and virtue in order to try and make it up for the people who died, which she has a massive guilt conscience over. This basically meant it was paragon a lot of the time. The only time she really dipped into renegade is whenever anyone sort of questioned her about being connected to Cerberus, she basically went with the renegade options and said, look, for the love of God, I do not want to work with Cerberus in any way, shape, or form. I'm just stuck here.
Yeah, and what's funny is, even though I went mostly renegade with my character, just because we're sharing names, mine was Aaron Shepard, even though I was playing mostly renegade, she basically regards Cerberus roughly as the equivalent of something nasty stuck to the bottom of one's boot.
I mean, one of the main times I got a massive load of renegade points was there's a little bit of intrigue which brings up the possibility that the elusive man might have got you straight into a trap. And whereas the Paragon option is, let's not jump to conclusions, my Shepard instantly went to, I knew we couldn't trust that guy.
And to be honest, it's a perfectly acceptable course for Paragon to take. And in my case, a mostly lawful neutral renegade who just really super hates Cerberus after seeing all the shit they did in Mass Effect 1.
I will say being Paragon led to the charm lines, which led to a lot of conversations got shut down, but it did lead to some cool moments, such as one of my personal favorites when a certain reporter comes back, and because she grills you over the fact that several human cruisers were sacrificed to save the Council, which was the result of my choice in the last game, she basically accuses Shepard of not caring about the people on the cruisers. Shepard proceeds to list off all of the ships, all of their captains, and then says,
Everyone in the Fifth Fleet is a hero. The Alliance owes them all medals. The Council owes them a lot more than that. And so do you.
Yeah, I took the renegade option there. Not the punch the reporter in the face renegade option, but the actual dialogue option, and Renegade Shepard goes for a slightly different tack and says,
There will be sacrifices. Being in charge means making sure they lead to the greater objective. That's a reality shared by all soldiers, in command and on the ground. Don't you dare suggest I made that call lightly. I won't have you disrespect any of those who gave their lives that day. They are heroes, all of them.
Yeah, like Sven said, there's no reason to force you to go completely Paragon or completely Renegade, so yeah, overall you can create some different contrasting Shepards, as I hope we demonstrated from this.
Yeah, it's really the big draw of Mass Effect after the first game, because, as we've discussed, the first game was just sort of routine, I guess, and sort of stiff and not very in-depth in certain things. Mass Effect 2 corrects all of the above.
Indeed, yes. I'm not sure if I could say skip Mass Effect 1 and go to Mass Effect 2, because whilst it does its best to try and fill you in, it really is a follow-on from the first game, because a lot of the side quests do carry on from Mass Effect 1, such as the Conrad Vernon, and really, those only have a big impact if you actually knew who those people were in the first one.
Yeah, basically, with Mass Effect, you don't need context, but it's extremely recommended for the full story experience. Yeah, ME1 can be sort of a gameplay slog, but it's worth it going into the rest of the series.
Indeed, yes. So, yeah, as you can pretty much gather, Mass Effect 2 is an incredibly positive experience. I've mentioned before that there's some, like, minor critiques, but they're really just stuff like I said, the onslaught of enemies, and honestly, though, the biggest criticism comes from a DLC, which the trilogy version of Mass Effect 2 seems to go about things weirdly, because some of the DLC is already in the game and some isn't. Like, you have to pay extra if you want the extra characters of either Mercenary in the trilogy version of the game, or the post-game one, which, what was it called?
Oh, I think it's Mass Effect 2 Arrival.
Arrival, yeah, that's the one, where you basically play as Shepard on their own, but you do get the Lair of the Shadow Broker DLC, and you also get Project Overlords. And you know what? I'm just gonna go flat out and say I did not like Project Overlords.
Oh god, yeah. I'm with you probably, I'm guessing for all the same reasons. Gameplay-wise, I could have done my entire life without another vehicle section. And it's a DLC with nothing but vehicle sections.
Yeah, basically the majority of the gameplay is using a vehicle to go to 3 separate bases. Oh god.
Yeah, I mean, it's at least not as bad as the Mako sections, but it's still bad.
Yeah, well, this is my thought process when I was going around in the Hammerhead, which is the new vehicle for this section. Why did they add the vehicle section? But, well, okay. It doesn't operate nearly as bad as the Mako. The controls seem to be perfectly nice. And wait, why is there a lava pit? And then suddenly you hear a robotic voice saying, use the rocks in the lava as footing. And I was just standing there going, are you kidding me? Let's unpack this. First off, knowing that the vehicles were the weakness of your last game, Why would you think vehicle platforming was a good idea?
Can I just point out the sudden genre shift to Super Mass Effect Bros?
Yeah, that was gonna be my second point. You're using Super Mario logic in a game which, yeah, is sci-fi, but has actually been grounded and realistic up to this point. How the hell do you justify leaping on blocks in lava? I'm not exaggerating here. It's a full-on Super Mario level where you're having to jump on rocks as they float down the stream, and you can't stay on one for too long, otherwise it sinks in the lava. It's the exact same mechanics, and I'm just thinking, who on earth thought it was a smart idea to do this?
Yeah, literally all you're missing is
Yeah, and it also doesn't hurt that, okay, we're at the final base. What is... Oh god, gun turrets we have to defeat it. Oh, shield generators, of course. Why not throw in all the other gaming cliches? Do you want to bring up a mech with a health bar? Why not have the mech have a giant glowing weak spot that I need to hit for massive damage?
Yeah, it's just sort of an unpleasant DLC all around. I mean, the gameplay's bad enough, but they sort of go for a cyberpunk horror feeling, and let me just say this, BioWare, Stephen King, you are not.
Yeah, it's kind of an upgrade of the same idea from Mass Effect, which is that apparently a VI, or virtual intelligence, I should probably clarify because I wasn't aware of this the last time and I may have given the wrong impression. VI in the Mass Effect universe is different from AI in the sense that VI is determined to not have any intelligence of any kind because AI has been made illegal after, well, the GEF.
Yeah, sort of a learning experience.
Yeah, so you're told that, okay, a VI has gone rogue and is trying to take over the network, but then you find out that Project Overlord is an AI that was essentially to try and control the GEF to use them so that they would serve Cerberus. And then this generates a horror aspect which, in fairness, definitely is creepy and filled with suspense, but... oh boy.
Yeah, warning here. I get the feeling that we both dislike the storyline of Overlord for the same reason I loathe The Walking Dead Season 2.
Yeah, well, an additional reason, but we'll get into that. Basically, the scientist, I forget his name, but really it doesn't matter, he's an absolute kid. There were two others, one of whom was the head scientist, and he notices that his brother develops a special quality, which means that he could actually be able to communicate with the GEF, and he gets an idea to use him in Project Overlord. And the way he does this is to strap him to a machine. Now, I need to stop you there. You're probably thinking of him being strapped to a chair with a couple of wires and maybe a kind of weird helmet on his head. You need to think a bit more twisted, as in having completely held up in a T-pose surrounded by wires, some wires that are stuffed into his mouth, and for some reason a device to hold his eyes open. I've no idea how that's supposed to help.
Yeah, it just seems like visual pointless horror with no logic behind it.
Yeah, and as Shepard, you find him and you confront the head scientist about it, and the main choice is whether or not you free the brother from this nightmare and take him as far away from the scientist as possible, or if you agree with the scientist that yes, whilst it is horrible, the research it could give would be for the greater good.
And just so you all know, hard-ass lawful neutral renegade Aaron Shepard told Gavin Archer right to his face after breaking his nose with her pistol, "I'm taking your brother, and if you ever come to try and find him, I will kill you personally."
Same. But this is the really awkward point. You may be wondering, why was the brother selected? The unique ability is that he's autistic.
You know, I mentioned The Walking Dead game Season 2 for a specific reason. It was cruel to a character with the exact same, shall we say, unique trait for the same reason. Pointless horror.
And it's just so frustrating because, yeah, the brother's mistreatment, it's meant to show that the scientist is a twat, I get it, but it's just...
Was this necessary?
Yeah, that's basically my feeling of it, because, yeah, nothing overly offensive happens, but it's kind of like, the best way I can describe it as an analogy, it's like watching someone load rocks into their backpack and then go skating on thin ice. And, yeah, they may come out the other side and be perfectly fine, but the whole time you're sitting there feeling incredibly uncomfortable and thinking, why the f*** are you doing this?
Yeah, the thing is, okay, for starters, like literally almost every other form of media, except one that I'm going to review in the season finale, the writing staff has absolutely no understanding of autism.
Oh god, yeah.
At all. And on top of that, it's like, okay, was this really a necessary thing to show how bad Gavin Archer is? It's like whenever a TV show has a non-heterosexual character who they kill for the sake of shock value.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where it's shock value and it's meant to be, yes, we're showing deepness because it's a brother not understanding the condition, and it's like, well, yeah, that might be cool, except you're kind of resorting to stereotypes because the reason why he's so good and able to communicate with machines is because he's autistic and has a high understanding of maths, which, okay, if you're autistic and you are good at maths or like maths, that's perfectly fine, but it is a common stereotype which it does not apply to autistic people, as I found out the hard way when it came to my GCSEs, but,
Yeah, I mean, it's possibly the most common misconception associated with autism and autistic characters that they're miraculously scientifically gifted, and let me tell you something. There have been cases like that. I do believe Albert Einstein was one of them, but it's debated as to whether or not he had ADHD or whatever have you, but the point is, those are the exception to the rule, which is generally, these people, talent-wise, aren't any different from the rest of us.
Like, a lot of it comes down to a hyper-focus where they get so absorbed into one thing, and even then, they kind of decided to, in order to emphasize the fact that he's autistic and quirky, they have him continuously repeating the square root of 52 is whatever the heck it is, which makes no sense, because one of the things where, aside from being autistic, I'm also being involved with courses that train to help people with autism, and one of the lessons they teach you is to not assume that it's weird, quirky, and random. There is a logic that makes sense in their own heads, so unless it helps you to calm down in some way, which there's no implication that's the case, they don't find many autistic people just randomly spouting math equations every 5 minutes.
Yeah, so just overall, watching the BioWare team write this particular character was like watching George R.R. Martin write a woman. Just a complete absence of understanding, like, what do?
It's just, yeah.
Overall, Overlord, aside from the annoying gameplay, was a story mistake.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say about it.
Yeah, if you're playing the trilogy version, I'd recommend not playing it. If you have the vanilla copy, I would definitely not recommend buying it on DLC.
Yeah, don't waste your time. Spoiler alert, you get no payoff in Mass Effect 3.
Yeah, it's just a brief cameo, and again, the first thing he says is square root of 52, which I was like, at the time of recording, I'm playing for the early stages of Mass Effect 3 and got to that mission where we saw him, and I had a mixed reaction of, it's nice to see you're doing well. But come on, really? That's your first bloody sentence?
I know, right? It's bad, guys. And it's not just that the storyline is unpleasant. Trust me, Zaid's loyalty mission is an exercise in BioWare seeing how far they can take Zaid without making him into a completely unsympathetic monster. It's just that BioWare's writing team also showed their amazing ignorance of everything.
Yeah, it was a really bad step. Like, nothing overtly offensive happened, but it was one of those things where you just seem to be kind of enforcing stereotypes and not really, I guess, exploring anything about it. It's just more, look at the disabled person we put up in wires for shock value, basically.
Yeah, and I mean, when I think of it, it's not as bad as The Walking Dead Season 2, because, I mean, at least they never stooped to murdering disabled characters to push some social Darwinist bullshit.
Yeah, at least it gives you the option to tell the guy who says it's for the greater good to shut the hell up and pistol whip him in the face.
Yeah, which admittedly was very satisfying, but it happened after a storyline that should not have existed.
Yeah, but... like I said, only one side quest, and one you don't even have to have in the game necessarily, so yeah, I think it's probably best we move away from that, and come right back around to the positives rather than ending on a negative, so that finale.
Yeah, that entire ending sequence. And the final boss.
Yeah, so Sven mentioned that some characters can die. This is, you can't go into the final mission very early on. This is one moment where you really want to take the time to go for 100%, preferably throughout the course of the game, rather than trying to dump it all in a few hours before the final mission, because, yeah, this is one of those games where your choices can drastically affect how the final sequence ends up. And I don't just mean complete the loyalty missions. There are other aspects of the game as well that, if you don't do them, characters will still die.
Yeah, namely ship upgrades. And that sort of leads into one gripe I do have with the game. Oh my god, the mining sections are the worst.
Yeah, that wasn't the greatest move. Basically, you have to go to a planet and then hold down the R button to scan it, and then occasionally launch a probe when a graph says there may be some minerals there.
Yeah, and you have to do this. Why? Because if you don't get the resources and upgrade your shields, your weapons, and your armor, people will die in the final mission, whether they're loyal or not.
Yeah, and on top of that, you do also have to make the right choices, because one of the fun things as part of the final mission is you have to decide which party member is doing what, and if you don't make the right choices, that could also get them killed.
Yeah, like, at one point you rescue the... Okay, spoilers. Your entire crew gets kidnapped, and that's what leads Shepard to go after the collectors in the end when they do. At one point, if you get to the final mission on time, you rescue your entire crew and have to choose a party member to accompany them back to the ship. I'm not sure if it matters all that much, but the canonical correct option is Morden, and you'd never guess it, because you sort of file away in your memory that he was a strike team commander as just an interesting tidbit, not something that might come in vitally handy.
You know what? That makes me happy to know, because I chose him by complete accident.
You were lucky.
Because I was just going on the logic that at least he has combat training and could tend the wounded. I did completely forgot about the strike team part.
Yeah, because the logic is Morden is used to commanding and fighting in small units and, like, running escort missions and everything, because Solarians are mostly special ops and tech-based, so it actually makes perfect sense when you think about it, but on the surface you'd never guess to send the scientist with him.
But yeah, it is a great finale. Like, even if you do manage to get it right, it's still completely filled with tension, because whilst you do make the correct choices, it's not overtly obvious, I guess you could say. Like, it's not until the very end it gives you the flashback of, oh hey, everyone's still alive. No, it puts you in one tense situation after another, especially since the collectors... My only minor gripe with them is that they don't really have a personality as such. I mean, there is Harbinger, but... how do I put this? Harbinger, when you first meet him, he's terrifying, because Harbinger is this, for lack of a better term, leader of the collectors, but he has this ability where he can possess one of the members in his hive and morph them into a proxy of himself with the intimidating line,
I am assuming direct control.
Yeah, which has become an infamous line from which Keith Sharabashka can never escape.
Yeah, essentially because when you first hear it, it's, oh crap, this is terrifying, the leader is among us, we're now on a fight on our hands. But the problem is, he does it so often, like he does it once every collector wave, to the point where, like I said, the first time you hear it, it's, oh my god, he's here, And by the time I got to the final battle, it's, oh, go away, Harbinger. We've done this how many times now?
And it's not made any better by the fact that... Shall I spoil them as to the reveal made after the final boss?
Go ahead.
It's not helped matters any by the fact that Harbinger is revealed to be the leader of the Reapers.
Yeah, it's, it kind of puts a downgrade on that, especially since, like I hate, it's, the attempts to make him intimidating really don't work that well, especially because essentially he also goes through continuous preaching whilst you're fighting, and he doesn't have that much more health than the standard trooper, so it can best be summed up as,
"This will burn you, Shepard. You will feel 1,000 years of conquest. Ow, my face! Ow, my face! Stop shooting me in the face! Ow!"
And it's not helped matters any by the ending of Mass Effect 3, which we'll get into in the next Mass Effect installment.
Yeah, but despite that, the Collectors are still intimidating in the sense that they're this continuous, never-ending alien force, especially with their creepy insectoid-style appearance. So, even with Harbinger being what he is, it still doesn't let up the fact that it is an intimidating experience where anyone can die, and I won't spoil what the final boss is, but, yeah. That was
horrifying.
Basically, yes.
Yeah, let's just say we learn a lot about the Reapers reproduce their race.
Yeah, it's, a bit creepy, but...
Yeah, Reapers, as it turns out, are made of organic pink slime with a bunch of cybernetics. That's all I'll say on that.
So yeah, it's a great finale that really does play on your choices up to that part of the game and really requires you to pay attention to what each party member is good at. And it's a great payoff for what I will say without a doubt is a fantastic game overall. This has quickly become one of my favourite RPGs, and aside from the technical issues, because Mass Effect 1 was a good, not great game, I was not particularly fussed to fix the technical issues and get to Mass Effect 2. I honestly regret that now.
Yeah, Mass Effect 2, despite the gripes we've had, is among BioWare's best. If I were to list their two best games ever, it would be this and Inquisition.
Yeah, it is definitely a great game and one of BioWare's best, and honestly I can't even find that many critiques from it aside from one or two minor gameplay gripes and one DLC which you don't even have to play or buy, technically.
Yeah, and whenever all the other DLC, especially Mass Effect 2 Arrival, which I won't spoil for the audience or for Jonin, because I've
watched SF Debris' thing, I know what happens.
Oh, yeah. If you want to talk about an intimidating way to end Mass Effect 2 in the post-game, holy crap.
Yeah.
Perhaps the first time my unshakable renegade was actually shaken by something she did.
That was another great finale. So, yeah, this has all been one very long-winded way you'll say, buy Mass Effect 2. Not Project Overlord, but Mass Effect 2.
Yeah. Mass Effect 2 is the payoff of slogging through Mass Effect 1.
Indeed, yes. And with that ends our review section for this month. So, we'll now leap into our final section, which is Quickfire Reviews! This is the section where we review everything else we've read, watched, or played, but within the maximum time limit of 60 seconds. And Sven, you have something you want to review, I believe?
Yes, and for this I may in fact need slightly longer than a minute, but we'll see how fast I can do this.
Alrighty, your time starts now.
WWE No Mercy 2017. Oh boy, where do I start with this one? Okay, the good. The Miz versus Jason Jordan. These two are always entertaining in the ring, even if The Miz is arguably the second most obnoxious thing in the WWE. Second, because we'll get into that. The women at the 5-Way Women's Championship. Holy crap, this might have been the star of the show, and props to Nia Jax for making a leg drop look cool. John Cena versus Roman Reigns. Did I actually hear half cheers for Roman Reigns after that match? Seriously, that was epic. And Ambrose and Rollins versus Sheamus and Cesaro, proving that Cesaro will do literally anything to appeal to the fans, including knocking out his two front teeth on the goalpost. And part 2, the bad. Finn Balor versus Bray Wyatt. Please stop. The Universal Championship, Lesnar versus Strowman. I didn't think any Lesnar retention match could get more boring than SummerSlam, but I was wrong. And lastly, Neville versus Enzo. Oh dear God.
Yeah, spoiler warning, I've started a wrestling podcast with MVL that may or may not go up at the time of recording, and I've gone over the reasons why I hate that match and that storyline, but basically, the best way I can put it is that in order to make someone a heel, you essentially made an entire division look like a joke, since it involves taking out one of the Cruiserweight's biggest villains and their longest running champion with a nut shot. Trust me, I could get started on this, but if it wasn't for the fact that I literally recorded that podcast yesterday and my throat is torn as a result, I would be going on for hours about that.
Yeah, that was just bad, but overall I pretty much liked No Mercy. Even Lesnar versus Strowman, it was a good match, but the title retention, oh my god, just end it. Lesnar's title run has been horrible.
Well, they can't do that, because apparently one of the leaked plans is for next year's WrestleMania, they want Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns. Isn't that a match you want to see, Sven?
Honestly, at this point, after seeing Reigns sort of improve going up against Cena and then get a legitimate cheer whenever he kicked Miz's face into space, end it, Roman. Pull the trigger. I'm ready.
I guess it would be less of two evils at this point.
I mean, at least Roman now has a personality.
True.
and slowly but surely is developing more than two moves. Aside from that, I basically liked everything on display. Jason Jordan is always amazing to watch in the ring. I just wish he hadn't been saddled with a Kurt Angle arc with unfortunate implications, and that women's 5-way championship match was amazing. Also, poor Cesaro's teeth.
Yeah, that was unfortunate. Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about the women's match, and I do kind of like Nia Jax's performer. I just hope they calm down, because that one 5-way match was amazing on its own, but WWE has a bad habit of throwing all the women into one match.
Yeah, it just happened that that one specifically worked, although I sort of feel sorry for Bayley. She returned specifically for No Mercy 2017, and Alexa retained by pinning her specifically.
Yeah, that was kind of unfortunate. And it's time to jump off the wrestling now, before I dominate this entire section. I have two things I want to quickly review, so, first off,
Golf Story. This is a download title that is available on the Nintendo Switch's eShop, and whilst I haven't gotten too far into the game yet, I'm actually enjoying it. It's a mixture of a strange comedy-based RPG and golf. It's a very strange combination, but it does make for a very charming experience, and even though the protagonist is simple, I do enjoy him and his early game struggles to try and impress a coach who doesn't want to give him the time of day. And also, it's worth it for one moment when your first epic moment of tension is when you're practicing golf as a child and your audience isn't a group of judgmental geese.
That's the funniest thing I've heard all day.
Yeah, it is a really good, charming game. The best way I can describe it is Earthbound based around golf and with reduced randomness. It's still in there, but nowhere near as random as Earthbound could get.
That's good to know.
My final one for this month, which, since I've already mentioned it,
Rurouni Kenshin Hokkaido Arc. This is a monthly manga series, and at the time of recording, only one chapter has come out, but again, I really like it so far. It's continuing on from the ending rather than pretending that it's happening before, and I'm really impressed with the new elements they're able to bring in, despite the fact that this is essentially a post-game story. Rurouni Kenshin and Kuro are still married, and in fact, the story is about how, surprisingly, Kuro's father is still alive, which is a big plot twist that we didn't see coming, and hopefully will allow some character development for Kuro, which I like her, but she hasn't had any for a long time now. So, yeah, I'm really enjoying that, plus the interaction with the new characters who were former minions to one of Kenshin's oldest enemies. So, yeah, long story short, really liking what they're doing, and looking forward to seeing where it goes from here.
I might have to start reading that. I haven't read a manga since Bleach ended.
yeah, I would definitely recommend Rurouni Kenshin. I mean, there are some moments where it does, basically ignore the very concept of science, like, Nobuhiro Watsuki, I love you, but you cannot deflect fire by spinning your sword. You can't. That's not how fire works.
No, it's not.
But I would also definitely recommend, if you pick up the manga volumes, you do actually get Watsuki's notes on how he felt and why he chose specific character designs. And there will be moments when you've read the story of the villain that started out entertaining, but then just became this completely shallow jackass. And then you find the character study notes, and Watsuki plainly admits, yeah, I'm disappointed at this character because I don't know what happened.
Wow, that's rough.
Yeah. But, yeah, that's all I have to review, so that brings us to the end of both the quickfire review section and the end of this podcast. Once again, thank you for the questions, and if you have any comments on Mass Effect 2 or anything else we've discussed, feel free to bring it up in the comment section. That's what it's there for. Although, once again, if you did not hug Tally, get out. Just
get out.
You're as welcome here as Conrad Werner is in bars.
Play Mass Effect 2 to get that joke.
Actually, just play Mass Effect 2.
Don't worry, we'll be away for a month. That should give you plenty of time. But yes, until then, I've been the Jonin Monkey.
And I've been Sven the Crusader. Watch out for Reapers, everyone.
Monkey Broadcast, a monthly review and discussion show hosted by the Jonin Monkey and Sven the Crusader. If you feel you've been the subject of slander or that your copyright is misused, send an email to thejoninmonkey@yahoo.co.uk. For more news and media reviews, follow me on Twitter @thejoninmonkey and go to thejoninmonkey.podbean.com for previous podcasts and MP3 downloads. All music used belongs to the original owners. Until next month, have fun, kids!
They'd be more effective if they all attacked at once. Please don't give the mercs ideas.